agriculture sector and how it is meant to create full monetization for Uganda's economy through agriculture. Now, for decades, agriculture here in our country, we have sung the song, agriculture is the backbone of Uganda. Agriculture is the backbone of Uganda, but the backbone, I think, is starting to miss some discs here and there, as my guests will be alluding to. It employs majority of our population, feeds our nation, and earns foreign exchange, and yet remains the primary source of income for millions of households. Now, despite years of promises, many farmers are still facing the same challenges. One of them is low productivity. The other is poor access to markets. Post-harvest losses is another challenge that is on ground for farmers. Climate shocks, climate change. The other day, in the night, it was a bit too hot in a rainy season, and it really put out the realities that climate is changing, and that change is affecting our agriculture sector. Now, is the agriculture sector also changing to resonate with the climate? Well, the guests this morning will help us unpack that. Expensive inputs, limited value addition, the list goes on and on. Now, in the next financial year, government has made its biggest agriculture commitment, allocating approximately 2.26 trillion Ugandan shillings, and this is to the agro-industrialization program under its broader goal of fully monetizing Uganda's economy, and this is through commercial agriculture, industrialization, digital transformation, and market access, as well as expansion. Now, question is, does more money automatically translate into better incomes for farmers? Will this budget finally move agriculture from subsistence to sustainable profitability? And even more importantly, what we need to ask ourselves, will ordinary Ugandans measure success 1 year from now, or will they be measuring something else altogether? So this morning, we unpack the agriculture budget and what the ambitions are, the breakdowns, and how really it trickles down to the last wananchi. Honorable Charles Tebandeke is joining me, Member of Parliament, Bale County, and Shadow Minister for Agriculture, and he's here to provide the opposition's perspective on agriculture policy, budgeting, and accountability, as well as government's performance in the sector. Honorable, good morning to you, and you're most welcome.
Good morning to you. Good morning, NTV.
Okay. We also do have Dennis Kabito, Chief Executive Officer for the Uganda National Young Farmers Association, and as he comes onto this table representing the interests of the farmers, particularly the newcomers on the age block that are being told to go into agriculture, agribusiness, innovation, commercial agriculture, and they're asking technology. We need investment in technology. He's here to bring their voices to the discussion. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Sheila, and welcome to NTV.
And then we also do have Claire Atkunda, Food Governance Specialist at Food Rights Alliance, as she's working with the food systems across the regions. Budget accountability is one of the things that they look into, farmer livelihoods, nutrition, agriculture governance, which is critical to this discussion. You are most welcome, Claire.
Thank you, Priscilla. Good morning, Ugandans.
Okay, now having the end in mind, if we were to sit here in 2027 and working with the budget that has been allocated of 2.2 trillion Ugandan shillings, what would be the measures or the indicators of success or failure, depending on how you will have made your analysis of this budget come 2027? Let me start with Claire.
Thank you. This budget is very interesting. We see allocations of about 2.26 billion in agriculture. We see taxes coming up. But in 2027, what will be the measures of success? What will we see and we say for the common Ugandan and the farmer deep down in the village, this budget has worked? One, food prices. The common Ugandan, most of his or her budget goes to food prices. And in 2027, the increase in food prices, which is anticipated, will be one of the most critical measures of whether this budget is a success. And we will unpack it, looking at the taxes that have been introduced on fuel, on cooking oil, on sugar, and how those impact food prices. Number two is service delivery. Can the common person at the ground, deep down in Ngoma, access these services, particularly, can they access extension services? This budget highlights that more extension officers will be brought on board with more facilitation. By 2027, what will be the proportion of extension officers and how often the farmers will get these extension officers will also determine whether this budget is a success. Third will be how many people will have gotten out of the subsistence economy. We have always talked about it, the parish development model and how we want to get the 33% out of the subsistence economy. But ultimately, for a farmer, these percentages may not mean so much as to can they get enough money to feed themselves, to get their children to school, to afford the daily expenses without worrying about the shocks that the economy gives gives every now and then. So and when we talk about subsistence economy, we have to realize that this budget has a very big impact on how many people will be gotten out of the or brought back into the subsistence economy. And this will be because, of course, taxes will be the first thing. Number two, the borrowing that is currently taking place. We are anticipating trillions of money to be borrowed. The money that is being taken out of the private sector, right now, with the levels of borrowing that we are anticipating, Uganda will be competing with the private sector to borrow money from. So you would assume that access to credit is going to be a very big challenge. So, looking at analyzing this budget critically, we are going to be asking ourselves in 2027 how many people have been brought back into the subsistence economy because of this budget.
Okay, all right. That's a very interesting starting point. 365 days from today. Dennis, what is your perspective? What are the indicators of success?
Okay, thank you so much, Priscilla, and good morning, Uganda, and happy to be here as a farmer leader, but also a farmer myself. This year's budget, 2026-2027, what would be the indicators of success? I would stem it back to what the minister was aiming at, that it's aiming at research, at irrigation, at post-harvest handling and agro-processing. So what would be the indicators of success? To me, first and foremost would be one, that we as farmers or as a country that is on agriculture, we have more agricultural exports. Not only one, for instance, coffee and all that, but more agricultural exports, because the budget is talking about markets. Then two, how can we be more resilient to climate shocks? The government is talking about more irrigation schemes and all that. It is included in this budget. Can we have more irrigation schemes seen and visibly seen, not only government dams and all that, but how the end customer, the farmer in the village, can access water for production? That could be a success. Three, can we have more increased jobs in the sector? And I wouldn't say more of because our sector provides more of the informal jobs. But how do we look at having increased formalized jobs in the agriculture sector?
Which jobs particularly?
The jobs are along the value chain. So we can bring in the ICT people in agriculture. We can bring in agri-technic people in the agriculture sector. We can bring in more extension workers within the sector. We can have farms that employ people, and these people are on a formalized kind of basis, because the farm is getting money, the people are contracted to do the job. whether it is increasing production, whether it is in aggregation. So these kinds of things. Then the other indicator of success would be, how do we have more of these smallholder farmers becoming more commercialized? Because most of the times this is so much romanticized that we should leave them the way they are, but it's not the best. Even the small can also be beautiful. And in this case, we need to see more of those that even are having just 1 acre. They are having sizable incomes to fend for their families. And also, as my sister said here, the access to service. The success would be that we reduce the extension ratio from 1 extension agent feeding 2,000 farmers to the FAO standard of 1 extension agent to 500. Because currently we are still having 1 to 1,800. And that is big. So we would see that
in a year you'll see your farm once.
Not even see them, if at all.
Yes.
So if we are saying that this budget,
yes,
if this budget is focusing on that, how do we see that the farmers are getting these services? And lastly, agriculture still remains externally funded. How do we find the local means of funding agriculture? Because that is still a big challenge. Thank you.
Okay, all right. To the honorable leader on the table.
Yes, please.
What would be your measures of success? What impact would you imagine should be realized in 2027 when there's full utilization of the 2.2 trillion Ugandan shillings for the agriculture budget?
First of all, I don't want to look a prophet of doom. But when you see the overall budget allocation itself, agriculture is in the 6th score, with the security being given the first priority. So in an economy, we have the production itself, then we have the engines, the drivers of the production. So contrary to Uganda, we have prioritized the facilitators of production before we empower the production itself. I don't know whether, if it was called for, to allocate for 10 trillions in security, given the peace we have registered for decades of years, given now the political separation, I would hope that it would now shift to rule of law, which does not require so much expenditures that would look wasteful. So the first indicator of whether success or failure of the budget is from the priorities itself. First of all, the budget itself has shifted with a range of about 12 trillions, from 72 of the previous to 84. And having shifted to such a figure, there is no account. The estimate and expectation from the oil production to boost the economy, that's excitement. You cannot count all your eggs chicken before they hatch. So Ugandans were told, first of all, that the first drop of the oil will be in 2025, yes. And the 2025 went begging without any success registered into. Now the anxiety and excitement is booming around the oil productivity that is going to raise the GDP of the country. So you cannot budget on exaggeration, on excitement, and you expect a score. First of all, I would request you, Madam Priscilla, the next time you bring us here, you call for us the Minister Planning and Economic Development, and also Finance, plus the Secretary, the Permanent Secretary. Because all these issues emanate from planning itself.
Well, Honorable, that is why you sit in Parliament, so that you can have them at will for them to explain the things that you need them to explain.
You see, in Parliament, there is a lot of manipulation of the rules. Then as you handle him one-on-one, you may not have that chance. Then the speaker at times also gets inclined. when you squeeze him to the bone marrow, then he rescues. So, but here it will be a one-on-one. Given your moderation, I believe it will be okay to answer vivid questions to the economy. First of all, I don't know the considerations they came up with to put agriculture in the 6th position. Because when you are making a budget, this is simple. Let us emulate from any budget for the function. If you are going for your wedding, you will look at the first priorities, and those are the ones that will put the first higher figures to score your objectives. So what are the objectives of this budget? Is full monetization. Now, if it is full monetization, what are we going to shift from to get into the monetary economy? And we are shifting from subsistence to commercial. So where are those priorities that we are shifting from? Statistics show, some sources indicate that 72% of the total population in Uganda is fully employed in agriculture. Then of the 72, it's only 4% that is in the full monetary economy. But from the recent statistics, which are the Ministry of Finance provided us, indicates that 70% of the total population is employed in agriculture, with 33% still lagging behind in subsistence economy. If you calculate the 33% into the actual figure of the millions of Uganda, it will come out with about 14 million people that are not considered in the budget by allocation, yet they would be the first priority to be pulled out into the money economy. Then, when you look at the earning, foreign earning, that contribute to our GDP, the gross domestic product, it indicates that agriculture only contributes 24% to the GDP of the country. So if it contributes 24%, where is that 24? Sources show still from their own statistics that when you consider the Middle East exports, what Uganda exports to the Middle East, we earn close to $4 billion USA. Then when you consider the Asian market, we are earning about $2.something billion. When you consider the European market, we are earning close to $2.5 billion of the GDP. What do we export to the Middle East? Those are the fish products. What do we export to the Asian market? Those are the fish products, the aquatic life products. Then what do we export to the UE? Now there the flowers come in, the coffee come in. I don't know whether cotton is still there. Then also the fish still dominates. But when you look at the budget allocation and the consideration for the entire agriculture as a sector, the 2.06, maybe fisheries can benefit from research and NAGRIC and NARO. Then the market research, rummaging for the market for the government is a foreign term. Government will never come in place to create awareness and create possible measures for Ugandans to benefit and penetrate the market. So you don't expect such a budget priorities with no specific consideration to the salient issues into the sector to bring out results. First of all, when we were sitting, the last sitting before budget reading at Kololo, every Ugandan saw what happened in the parliament. Of course, you can sit there and abuse the entire parliament for Holocaust performance. But now it's high time that Ugandans should be looking at individual MP performance. If Tebandeke was non-objective to the law he passed because of the loopholes unexplained, if now the loan passes, why should he attack Tebandeke? Why should he attack a law when he was against the consideration of such a loan? Now I want to inform Ugandans that even this recent budget we passed, before it is active, the loan that is eating up the budget priorities is already passed by Parliament.
All right, so for people who may not be following or were not able to follow that parliamentary proceeding particularly, I know you're making reference to the irrigation fund.
Yes.
Can you please throw more light?
Yeah, the irrigation fund approximately, I don't want to read it in foreign currency. Yeah. But in Uganda currency, it's close to 760 something billions of money. When you see the 2 trillions, 0.06 allocated to the entire ministry, not even a sector, but the entire ministry, there are 80 components that are supposed to share on the same, including NAGRIC research, the advisory extension workers, the market research, among others. If you divide each ministry averagely, because they contribute equally, would be sharing close to 285 billions. Now here, the water for irrigation, I don't know whether it is in the government priority of consideration on allocation. For it, it has already scooped out 785 billions. So the balance is now... It has
already scooped out what would be taken by 2-3 components of that budget.
Now, as per the balance now, we are now remaining with 1.3 trillions. Now, the 1.3 trillions, will it serve the purpose of the other 80 components because they have a collective performance to boost out these objectives? So, as we still look forward to see whether the budget will yield the success or failure, the first failure is in the priorities of consideration on allocations of figure. Okay. So you don't expect that.
All right. Later on, we'll be hearing on what would have been the alternative budget to consider, especially focusing on agriculture and what the needs of the agriculture sector are by and large. But back to you, Claire. You had mentioned in your earlier submission the final food price. And given these 8 components, how do they tie into actually determining the final food price in the next 365 days?
Of course, food prices are dependent on, one, of course, there are issues like fuel, but also there are cost of production, which is very critical because, one, as you increase taxes on issues like, of course, on sugar, cooking oil, that tax is not felt by the exporter or the manufacturer. It is felt by, it trickles down to the common person that is taking those services.
The end user.
Yes. So, and directly or indirectly, these commodities affect, because they are used in everyday life, they affect the cost of other livelihoods. For example, let's take an example of cooking oil. It will affect the chapati maker, it will affect the cassava seller on the roadside. So their cost of production automatically increases. So if you were buying maybe your commando at 1,500 or 2,000, now you will buy it at 4,000. And so all that comes back in the chain back to food prices. When you look at of course, let me not talk about pay. When you look at also the services and how much farmers have to put in to produce. Given, of course, we already know that this budget is not going to be sufficient to meet the needs of the common farmer. So the cost of producing food, transportation issues, post-harvest handling challenges, all those come back to again hiking the food prices at the end of the day. And this is not something that is going to even come in 2027. It is already happening. The food prices have, just crept on us and increased. When you go to the market, a tomato you used to buy at 100, it is now 500. So, and we expect this to increase because the budget is not favoring the food producers.
Okay. Now, speaking of food producers, with what you've been able to engage, or in the different engagements you've had with them, which of these components actually is most critical for them right now?
There is no standalone. Like, you cannot have an issue standing alone. You have to follow the whole chain, because what a farmer needs deep down in maybe Hoima, one, they need to, for them what they want are quality inputs, that they can get quality inputs at an affordable price. They can get extension officers that are going to visit them more than once a year. They are going to get roads that they can transport their food. They're going to get ready markets at competitive prices for their products. They are going to get storage facilities where they can keep their produce when they have brought it to the market, or even common user facilities to manage their produce post-harvest.
Dennis, from what Claire is submitting, it definitely is a rock and a hard place, because if you're working now with only 1.3 trillion Ugandan shillings, agriculture research must get something, irrigation must get something, the extension workers, if they're not serviced in time, you may not even see them the entire year.
Of course.
The quality inputs you're talking about, there's already an issue of, counterfeit and, fraudulence in that area. That alone is a big issue for agriculture. Post-harvest handling, value addition, market access has been a cry and a song for such a long time. Where we stand right now, how can we use these elements to even mark as low as 1% of a benefit of this budget?
As farmers?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, looking at that, as my interest as a farmer is to see, first and foremost, that there is will in trying to implement what has been put on paper. That's the first thing. If there is will.
So on that note,
yes,
the outgoing budget,
yes,
has there been any realization, could ground?
There has been.
Have you seen some change here and there?
It's a bit skewed, yes. There has been some little change,
okay,
but it is siloized. I'll give an example. There has been the Commercial Farmers Fund, yeah. And recently I had the minister talking about almost 169 billion Uganda shillings going to 186 farmers only. Who are those farmers? Are they the common farmers? Because when you look at to be a commercial farmer, again, in the aspect is around having 50 plus acres and above under production. So, and those same farmers are getting those billions of money, and the government is helping them to pay the tax, the interest. And yet, we are seeing in the parish development model that these smallholder farmers can get 1 million Uganda shillings, and at the end of the cycle, they have to pay. So you see this kind of imbalance. Yeah. How can you expect a smallholder farmer who is still looking at food security in the household being boosted with 1 million shillings, but then one has to pay it
for their 4 cows,
for their cows, and then you find that this commercialized farmer is getting billions of shillings from the banks, and the government is helping them.
Claire has something to add to that.
You see, these commercial farmers, and averagely, each of those 186 will be getting about 26 billion access to credit. And this subsistence farmer who we are hoping to bring into the money economy is getting only 1 million. And you see the trade-off, this budget deepens the inequalities. That the rich are going to be richer, the poorer are just going to, the poor are going to just be
Honorable
poorer.
Tewandeke, the people that you represent in Bali, are they going to, which level are they? Are they poor to poorer or rich to richer?
You know the vicious cycle of poverty. So my representation is fully in a vicious cycle of poverty, where a person cannot meet the cost of living a day, then that one is automatically poor. So these are the kind of people we are representing. Statistics from Kampala indicate that for a person to survive in Uganda, you must meet 20,000 per day as a cost of living. Averagely, that is 600,000 a month. So how many employees are earning 600,000?
So on that note,
and when it comes to agriculture, it's too worse.
In comparison to the fund and the PDM element that they're trying to make comparison to, and how it's really creating a deeper divide than helping people leapfrog from subsistence to commercial. What's your take on that?
First of all, the PDM money, I needed to appreciate that it was added on. Even agriculture budget. Some years back, financial years back, the budget has shifted from 1 trillion, 1.4, 1.6, 1.8, it's now 2.06. It would be a score in a layman's observation.
Yeah.
But my task is to advise government. When you look at their NDP 3, National Development Plan 3, then 4, which we are in, because this is now National Development Plan for a shift from subsistence to monetization, commercial. We are behind the consideration of the budget. At this level, we would be using a budget of 4.4 trillion in agriculture. But now we are running a budget of 50% in the sector. So we can't be excited to join the celebrities that agriculture is now doing well, it's booming well, it is a backbone of Uganda's economy. Actually, that is mythical. That slogan has to change from backbone to a stomach muscle.
So I guess that's the argument that Dennis you're trying to make, that there's the backbone, then there's the stomach muscle. Please continue the argument.
Yes, so thank you. We would say it would be the backbone, but now as I was saying,
the backbone is broken.
It is being broken by the processes.
The economy is moving by the
and
stomach muscle.
As I said, there is a lot, like Honorable said, where are our priorities? Where are we putting them? Because if we are saying that apart from the biggest foreign exchange earners, apart from tourism and gold, the next is from agriculture exports.
Okay, so on the two elements, just a minute.
Yes.
On the two elements,
Yes.
if you were to sit before an advisory body and you were asked to give submissions on how they could edit what is in the PDM and how it is supposed to help versus the other agriculture fund, what would be your recommendations?
One is that it should go to the end user. It shouldn't be politicized. Even the PDM, I don't have to don a yellow t-shirt to get that money. I should get it as a genuine farmer. And it should serve the purpose. It shouldn't be that the money is brought and we take it. Have the masses been sensitized about it? Because they need to know and how they are going to use it and how is it going to help them. That's one of the key things. Then, how do we look at the services that will come after me getting the money? It's not only about production. How do we look at that I have given you this 1 million or 2 million. I want you to produce this because there's an off-taker around in that parish who is ready to aggregate your products and take them. Because markets pull the whole chain. If there is a market that is ready for the farmers, they'll pull their socks and produce the right quality of the
so
products.
A more strategic alignment.
Yes, a more strategic alignment in that direction. And also, we should look at the aspect of trying to there are key things that have also been still missing. Insurance to the farmers. It was just a pilot. How do we look at full-scale insurance that can help, because the climate shocks are
we
rampant.
we can't get to insurance before we can really tick off on research, irrigation, post-harvest planning.
But
that is far-fetched, isn't it, Claire?
It wouldn't
It
be.
is, but you see, PDM is very interesting because how much can 1 million change in terms of sustainable enterprise growth in agriculture?
On top of the how much, how long would it also
Yes. So for me, if it was to be an ideal access to credit mechanism, I would propose that, first of all, the caps are removed, that it is not about 1 million, it is about what are the proposals that the farmers are bringing up in terms of enterprises, and how much would be feasible to credit them so that they can be able to develop these enterprises sustainably. And number two, this free money, let me call it, for lack of a better word, free money. Farmers, as long as they can get access to credit that, you know, that is feasible, that can work for them, they can pay back.
True.
Because why farming and agriculture has potential. It has potential to raise these incomes. So the aspect of free money, which we call it anyway, it is not that what we need as maybe as the common person is how do we access credit that does not have these bureaucracies, that does not need a lot of you know, you have to have these many plots of land for you to access this credit, that the young farmer or the person that has 1 acre or half an acre can go and access it in a timely manner with as very little bureaucracy as possible. And that is where now, that is what we need more than PDM.
Honorable, as you respond later on, I would like you to respond to one of the other elements in all of this. Why does opposition remain unconvinced that this budget is not sufficient enough to address the issues in agriculture?
Thank you. I think in our alternative as opposition, we agitated for either establishment or restoration of agricultural bank as the only means that can easily enable farmer access clear proper services. When you look at the performance of PDM is a good model, but to small scale business persons. We are talking about agriculture in a broader perspective for a shift from kulia kwechida chonka into commercial agriculture. Really, you cannot expect a farmer like my mother down there in Chisari Zigaliraya to have a shift registered by employment of 1 million. And even that 1 million, by the time a farmer gets it, it has already reduced. You look at the cost of the inputs, which has been talking of, the fertilizers, the pesticides. So this is a bigger concept where we are even looking at storage. We are looking at extension services. We still have a gap of unemployed extension service workers, close to 1,200. And the ratio he has given, we are having a ratio of 1 to 2,000. Which is insufficient, insignificant. But right now, even as we speak, we are having 1 to 500. Even you see that the gap is still very big to suit the actual targets of the budget. So much as for us would say that let PDM help the small scale business traders. And now the farmers, since we are looking at a shift from subsistence to commercial, when you see the traders' consideration, even this very financial year, they have been allocated 1.6 trillion in the UDB, Uganda Development Bank, for those operating at a large scale. Now, if you want farmers to shift from subsistence to commercial, it implies you want them to operate at a larger scale. How do you consider them under PDM of 1 million allocation per head, actually per household? Then it remains unclear policy to effect and implement.
Okay, all right. There's another element that we must consider of the components is value addition and market access. I would like all of you to speak into that. Let me start with you, Claire, from how you've been able to engage and how, you know, CSOs are engaging with the farmers on the ground. What are the opportunities? What are the low-hanging fruits for value addition that can actually also maybe create more market?
Okay. One is the capacity. We as a nation have the labor and the capacity. So as we are a young population, so the workers are there. The people to work in value addition and to engage in enterprise development exist. That is the first opportunity. Number two is that as much as we say production is low, even what is produced, we are not maximizing its potential. So that would be the second. And third is the local domestic market in Uganda that has not been harnessed. We as Ugandans have our own market for our own produce. Much before we even talk about exports and the potential that we have and how much we are exporting, the consumption on the local market, what initiatives have been put to develop that market, to meet its needs, because ultimately this budget does not show exactly how we are developing the local markets to be able to consume the value added products. Right? So these are areas that, you know, we have a lot of potential that, you know, because one region, it's interesting in Uganda that one region can have a lot of food that is going to waste and the other region is suffering from hunger. And you're asking yourself, what is the problem?
Okay. All right. Dennis.
Thank you so much. In order to harness the markets and also have value addition, one of the key things is that everything starts from an organized system. How can we have the producers organized? Because if we want to have even the small cottage industries around the villages or the sub-counties, they should come through groups, should come through cooperatives, because we have less of this. And there is little effort in trying to organize the people that are producing the food, because it starts from organizing them. Then these other economies of scale can come in, because once we organize, we can bulk together. That means that we are looking at storage, and then after that we can bargain depending on the available market prices. But also we have the impulse of trying to even process on what we have, because most of the times, because everybody wants to sell at the farm gate, what happens is that a lot is put to waste.
Okay.
So how do we reduce it to because 40% of the food is in post-harvest losses. Even if we tweak this,
your recommendations would be?
Yes, we tweak this, that we have more of clear post-harvest handling processes. Then also skilling at the lower level in agro-processing is still needed, because this will help even in reducing these losses. Okay. But also, lastly, is to look at, as Shah said, the domestic and regional markets. How do we look at them in serving the farmers? But as we are putting them together, we shouldn't marginalize the farmers, because yes, she talked about a tomato at 500.
Thank you, Dennis.
But the farmer is getting cents of that. Who is getting the other money? So everything has to be organized,
okay,
and not the farmers marginalized.
And the closing round will go to Honorable Tevandeke.
Yes, over the same.
Over the same, and also your closing remarks.
Actually, we cannot. I don't want to debate in abstract. Uganda, we needed to scale down if we are to add value in line with our markets, we need to specify which products sell in the local market, regional, then outside markets. You see now what the government is doing, because the coffee is now selling, wants every part of Uganda to grow coffee. That is, it is a good ideology, but practically, it might even create scarcity for other produce, which are needed in the struggle against famine. If northern Uganda, Karamoja, they are pastoralists, what it requires there is to construct for them dams and give them extension service to boost from pastoralism to ranching, as the case was in Western Uganda. Why should you take a lot of consideration? Iteso region must grow coffee when the land there is suitable for soybean, millet, and sorghum. Then simusimu. Isn't the simusimu selling? Isn't the soybean selling? Why should you comparatively insinuate them into growing coffee? If, by the way, Uganda is naturally endowed, and we have even been growing coffee regardless of the provision of these other services. What compromised the coffee growing was the quality. But when you went to Mitoma, you will find the coffee being grown. When you went to Maracha, Zombo, you will find the coffee being grown without even the intervention of all this.
Okay.
So what is required as of now is to see consistency in production. If our farmers are producing, for instance, goats rearing, can they rear goats and consistently sustain the market? That's the problem at hand.
Okay.
If, for instance, milk,
that's your last one. Yes.
Normally is a milk producer. Can he share knowledge and services with the other counterparts to produce milk extensively and sustain the market?
Okay.
And where we attain the market, you shouldn't lose it.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Charles Tebandeke, for bringing us up to speed with some of this knowledge and really how we should be thinking. But also, I also want to thank our other panelists this morning, Dennis Kavito, and also we do have the wonderful lady Claire Atkunda that has also been part and parcel of this discussion to really open up our eyes and to bring the voices of the different stakeholders on table in terms of good governance as far as the budget is concerned for agriculture. Now, speaking of good governance goes hand in hand with, observe